Welcome back to another English 101 video. You have made it to the end. You are in week 16. You have written 3 challenging papers, and now you just need to submit the last one, the 4th paper of the term, the position paper. Now, I want to say that I feel very confident in saying that every single person that is still in this class has made a great deal of progress this semester, right? You've hung through to the end, you've persevered through difficulties, and each of you has grown as a writer. I've seen it in the things that you submit. The question is, have you improved enough to pass the class, right? And in essence, the final paper requires you to demonstrate almost all, if not all, of the competencies that are required for the successful completion of English 101. That's why I don't need to give a final exam, right? If you can do all the things that I'm asking you to do in that position paper and you can do them well, then you are prepared for English 102. You would certainly be prepared for my English 102 class and any other English 102 class on campus. So, of course, for me to be able to say that, that means that I have to have certain standards in place, right? And I think you understand how those work because you've submitted 3 papers to me by now, right? You've looked at my feedback, you understand what constitutes passing work and what doesn't and why, right? And so I want you to treat this final paper with the respect that it deserves, right? because because it's being given instead of a final exam, it's worth additional points. It's 350 points, right? And the idea is that that way there's room for improvement for people that might have struggled at the beginning that are beginning to improve now. But it's also worth more points because, like I mentioned, it requires you to do so many different things. Let's talk about that briefly. I guess probably the first thing to mention is that when you look at this week's materials, you're going to see that it's all stuff about editing. Now, look, I realize that even though just about everybody participated in the peer review, which is wonderful, everybody submitted something for that, just about. I realize that most of those are not going to be finished papers, right? People submit papers in progress. And so I realize that lots of people, they're going to be going back through these materials and they're going to say, okay, well, I didn't get into using that source that disagrees with me. I didn't make it that far in my peer review, in what I submitted for my peer review. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to review this, right? Or maybe you did really well with this part, with that source, but you're struggling with figuring out how grounds work. I was talking with somebody about the whole grounds versus warrant dynamic in a virtual office hour meeting today, right? And so that's a great thing to do in week 16 is to, if you've got lingering questions, right, you can get them answered by me, right, one-on-one, or you can review some of these past materials. But the thing is, once you've gotten that paper written all the way through, once you've done all the things that are required that you're supposed to do, right? The use of grounds and warrant from 2 different sources that agree with you, addressing an opposing viewpoint from a source that doesn't agree with you, creating concessions and a concession and a refutation for that source, creating a useful introduction and conclusion according to the instructions in the other materials that talk about that, creating the works cited page, checking over all the in-text citations. Once that's all done, you've got to leave some time for editing, right? Hang on one second here. Oh, I'm very sorry about that. I don't know why it was quite so difficult to pause the video recording there. But anyhow, we were talking about the importance of editing. Here's the thing. I've been writing professionally for quite a few years. I'm a writing instructor, for goodness sake. And I still have to create time for editing, even if it's just a short email, right? Because the thing is, when you're trying to get all those great ideas down, it's inevitable that you're going to miss some things. You're going to misspell some things. You're going to miss a comma. And if you don't create time for yourself to reread what you've written, there's going to be a lot of lingering errors. Now, for some students, this is going to be kind of obvious, but in my experience, some English 101 students are still coming to this realization. And indeed, in the final paper, every semester, there's a number of these that I have to fail because the ideas are there. The student clearly understands Toolman argumentation, but there are just too many grammatical errors for it to be a passing paper. And the thing is, we have to get all that hammered out before you leave English 101. You have to be strong on grammar going into English 102. I've had students in English 102 that have kind of snuck in there that are still struggling with grammar and they don't fare well. There's too much reading and writing in that class, right? And so indeed, that's why all these tools are geared towards helping you make sure that everything in there reads clearly. Reading aloud is huge. You will catch errors that way if you make time to do it. There's lots of other suggestions here. You could try some of them, or you could do all of them, whatever you have time for. But I think that you need to make time, I should say, to do some kind of editing because when you elect not to, it really shows. And the thing is, that damages your credibility with an academic reader. And so I've got no choice but to take off points for it. If you really struggle with grammar, if you feel like you didn't get enough, instruction with that in the past, if you feel like the notes I've written to you on your past papers have not been enough, I would really encourage you to work with a tutor at GCC. They can meet with you online. They're still available, is my understanding, and so they can help you make sure that paper gets to where it needs to be before you submit it to me on December 11th. Okay. Or if you want to meet with me, that would be a great use of the final week here. Stop by the virtual office hours between 10 and 11:30, Monday through Thursday. Or if those times don't work, shoot me a message. We can meet at a different time and I can go over the paper with you and we can talk about whatever you need help with, right? Whether it's the Toolman approach or grammatical issues. I'm happy to help however I can. Okay. But again, lots of the materials this week have to do with editing. And then you'll see there's a fair amount of stuff in there that has to do with citation as well. Because I think lots of you have developed good skills at identifying good quotes to use for grounds, finding facts that help prove your argument, right? But again, when you're editing, you want to go back through and say, did I make sure? Did you get that in-text citation right? Did you get quotation marks on all the words that are from a source? Right? You cannot cut and paste or copy wording from a source without using quotation marks. Okay, it's plagiarism and it's going to lead to big problems as described in the instructions for the position paper. So there's lots of materials in here that have to do with citation. In my experience, most students are getting pretty good at that by the final paper, and indeed, I believe most of you are. It's mostly just, dotting the proverbial I's and crossing the T's, making sure that you understand all the details of citation. And again, if these tools aren't enough, I'm here to help as well. Lastly, there's this final checklist that I've developed, right? And I even left space for a check mark here, right? If you look at these first things with the check marks, these are things that are easy to look at and make sure that you have addressed. And, excuse me, I have these things here because they are so mission critical, right? If you forget the works cited page, there's going to be a lot of points that come off. If you submit the paper and there's only one source on that works cited page, you're not making use of Toulmin argumentation, clearly, and there's going to be a lot of issues with that paper, right? Again, and of course, there's a reminder about the word count, lots of other things. So just, take a look at your paper to make sure that you've done these things. Because the thing about the peer review is you're going to get feedback from other students, but for most of you, the paper that you submitted probably wasn't all the way finished, right? So once it's finished, you need to run the checklist yourself on your own paper. There's lots of stuff in here about common errors, right? Like errors like this are just really, really distracting because they're so easy to fix, and they're going to get picked up by literally any spell check software you've got in Microsoft Word or Google Docs. And so they really just destroy your credibility with the academic reader. They send the message that you didn't even bother to click the spell check button. We don't want that. And there's some things in here, and again, I think lots of you are developing some proficiency with addressing these things, but these are easy things to fix. Make sure you don't have I statements in there. Here's some easy catches for sentence fragments. Author introductions. On the discussion boards, people understand how these work. For the most part, people are making good use of these, but a lot of times they lead to grammatical errors, and so I've got some stuff in there about that. Anyhow, I would really, really, really encourage you to plan out week 16 so that you have time to run this checklist before you submit the final paper. Last thing I want to talk to you about is the due date. Of course, the paper is due Friday, December 11th, before 11:59 p.m. Now, here's the thing. If you need to hold on to it an extra day to really thoroughly edit it for grammar, you should do that. Of course, if it's submitted late, I will need to take some points off. However, I would rather receive it a day or two late and have it nice and polished with very few errors than receive it on time and have there be a grammatical error in every other sentence. If there's a grammatical error in every other sentence, I'm going to fail the paper. It doesn't matter what else is in there, right? So keep that in mind. You've got to, this is why this paper is so hard, is because I'm asking you to do all these complex things with Toulmin and do all the stuff that you learned with citation, but you have to leave time to edit it really, really well. I think that's all I've got. Again, I believe that you can do this. Each of you has made a great deal of progress, and you are in a place where you can be successful, but you need to do well on this paper. I'm here to help out however I can. Even if you're not sure I can help, you want to send me a message, we can just talk about it more. Let me know. I'll be available as always. But good luck. I'm looking forward to reading these. I've really enjoyed working with you this semester. I hope you've enjoyed the many pictures of Steve. He frequently sits with me while I grade these, and so I feel like he's sort of my teaching assistant for this semester. I hope you've enjoyed meeting him as well. Some of you I will see in English 102 next semester, or maybe down the road, or who knows, maybe even in a creative writing class. That's it for this video, though. Take care and enjoy the rest of this week's materials. Bye now.